is no standard.
Then yeah, I'd say there is no perfect standard for what's right and what's wrong.
Okay, so based on that worldview, you can't impose that upon someone else who says, yeah, I don't think there's any set standard for right and wrong. Look, I think it's reasonable for me to assume that the four of us agree that it's wrong to rape small children and bury them in shallow graves for the fun of it.
Yep.
Right?
I wouldn't do it.
But to that person who did it,
Yeah, but his moral standard
says right.
it says it's a good time. So if it's up to the individual to determine what their standards are, then we can't say he's wrong.
That's why these societies make standards.
And if a society says it's okay to rape small children and bury them in shallow graves, the society that disagrees can't say they're wrong because there's no standard. See, and that's what happens when you operate from a worldview where God is not the standard.
And you have a majority of 99 societies say that's right, say
So
it's
what?
wrong, and then one says it's right.
So what? Then you have 99 societies that have an arbitrary standard that disagrees with the one that has an arbitrary standard.
Right.
Right, and so you can't morally impose your arbitrary standard on someone else if the governing rule is everybody gets to make their own arbitrary standard, whether it's an individual or a society. And that's what happens with a worldview without God. You're left with absurdity. You're left with
the worldview of God.
Well, see, and that's the point. The four of us all have the same law written on our hearts. God, who created us, not the Constitution, a moral law. Unlike the ape, unlike the coronavirus, unlike the turtle crawling out of the ocean, we, being created in the image of God, have His moral character written on our hearts. He's given us a conscience. You and I both know it's wrong to lie, not because of how we were raised or where we were raised or when we were raised, but because the God who created us isn't a liar like we are, or can be. We know it's wrong to steal for the same reason. There are societies that teach their children to steal. They start them at a young...
Is it wrong to steal when I have to feed my kid and I have no food?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
To me, it wouldn't.
Well, but you're not the standard.
But what's the standard?
God is the standard. He's
How
written that law.
How does God say not to steal, not to...
Because it's contrary to His own nature. Because He's perfect, He's holy.
Personally, I just don't think we know that. I don't know how we know that.
Because He's written it on our hearts. What's that?
I would argue He's perfect.
He's written it on our
God
hearts.
is perfect,
I
yeah.
would argue that.
Yeah.
Because you can't be all-knowing and all-powerful and still allow bad things to happen if you're perfect.
Why?
Because if you're perfect, okay. And you can't be all-knowing, all-powerful, and be perfect if bad things still happen.
Not true. See, you're looking at that from the perspective, though, that man is inherently good. Therefore,
inherently bad.
Right,
Yeah.
by his nature. Right, if
natural disaster.
right, if God
So
gave,
if you can't be all-knowing, all-powerful, and still allow those to happen if you're perfect.
that doesn't follow. That doesn't follow, because the God who is all-powerful, all-knowing, and who is perfect, who is holy, is just and right if He condemns all of us to hell because we're not. We've broken His law. In thought, word, or deed, we've broken His law. The fact that what's amazing isn't that God punishes, but that God saves anybody. Because all of us have broken His law. All of us are unholy. Who among us can say we've never lied or never stolen? Who among us can say that we've never looked at a woman with lust? Who among us can say that we've never harbored bitterness or resentment in our heart, going against the very conscience God has given us, having created us in His image? We've all broken His law. That's why He's just and He's righteous and He's good to punish all of mankind. That He saves anybody shows how extraordinary His grace and His love and His mercy is. See, but if you look from the perspective that there's even an inkling of good in mankind, then God owes us something. All God owes us is His wrath for breaking His law. That's all He owes us. But this same God who is holy and righteous and just, who's angry with the wicked every day, is loving and merciful and kind. And He showed that 2,000 years ago when He sent His Son to earth in the person of Jesus Christ. Truly God, truly man, and without sin. Unlike us, who've sinned every day of our lives in one way or another, He lived a perfect life for some 33 years on this earth. And then at a time appointed before the foundation of the world, he voluntarily went to a Roman cross where he suffered and died a horrific bloody death he did not deserve, to take upon himself the punishment we rightly deserve for our sins against God. And then he forever defeated sin and death when he rose from the grave. God's provided, God who does not negotiate with sinners, and that's who we are, has provided one way for us to be reconciled to him. And it's not by living an arbitrary life with arbitrary standards. And it's not by going to church on Sunday and living like hell Monday through Saturday.
Damn right.
It's by receiving the gift of his grace that he gave through the gift of his son, Jesus Christ. And that's how we can make sense of this entire world.
I just think it's hard to make sense of it when you have like centuries and centuries of people relating these stories, because it's all through people, word of mouth and writings. So it's like, how do we know the real truth, you know? Because have you ever played phone call in a class when like whoever is called and I whisper in his ear and it goes around the next 20 people down the road, it's completely different than what I said in the first place. And I feel like how it's not going to happen in a little bit at least, you know?
Well, you know, there's not a whole lot that's good about the internet, but one of the things that's good about the internet is that we now have access to, just take the New Testament alone, some 25,000 partial and complete documents dating back to within a few decades of the original writing. And we can look at the original languages and look at the best translations we have today of that, and you are going to see that they are consistent. But look, the God who created you and me is more than able to protect the inerrancy and infallibility of his own word.
Okay. It's interesting. I love having these conversations.
Yeah, that's I love them too.
Yeah.
And, you know, without freaking you guys out, I love you guys.
And that's, I love you too.
And that's why I'm here, because
That's cool.
what God did for me 30 years ago, a sinner who thought it was cool to thump on inmates in the county jail, changed my heart, changed my life, saved me. I'd have to hate you to not want that for you.
Yeah. I hope you
Right?
don't.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
That's why I want to have these
But
conversations.
do you think I can be that free and that loving without having God in my life?
Well,
Loving as free as you without having God in my
I'll
life?
say this. There are people in hell today who are a lot nicer than me. Okay?
Okay.
And the reason for that is you don't go to heaven for being a nice guy.
But I'm talking about loving and caring.
Well, look,
That's different than being
look,
nice.
even my love for you, I'm still in this sinful flesh. I'm a guy who breaks God's law every day. He's changed the desires of my heart. He's changed my will. I want to live a life pleasing to him, not to earn his love, but because I'm grateful for the gift that he's given me.
Right. Grateful to wake up.
But I sin against God every day.
Yeah, same.
Okay? And the good news is that my hope isn't in my ability to please God. My hope is in what God did for me and to me through faith in his son, Jesus Christ.
Okay, but my question was, can I be as free and as loving
No.
and free as you?
No.
Since you
Well-
have God in my life, in your life, but
Okay.
I don't have God in my life. But can I be as free and loving and just caring
Yeah.
for people as you are?
First of all,
we're different on
first of all, knowing me the way I know me, you don't want me to be your standard of love.
No, but I'm
You want to do better than me, okay?
Okay.
You want to be a better guy than me.
Okay.
All right?
Cool.
Can you express and show love to other people the same way I do? Yes, you can. But here's the thing. On our best day, our most loving acts are tainted by sin. On our best day. That's our problem.
Okay.
There's nothing we can do to commend ourselves to a perfect and just and holy God because of our sin, we were born with a sin nature, thanks to the first man, Adam. Each and every one of us were born with a sin nature. All we can do is sin. There's nothing we can do to please God. In and of ourselves, there's nothing we can do to please God. In fact, Prophet Isaiah said our good works are like filthy rags to a holy God. In fact, our efforts to commend ourselves to God is nothing more than trying to bribe the judge of the universe. It'd be like going into a courtroom and saying, Your Honor, I'm guilty, but I washed the windows on your Mercedes and here's $20, let's forget about the whole thing. it's not going to work out.
So since I haven't like accepted God or Jesus in my life, you know, but let's say I'm just as free and I'm just as loving and caring and I do more for people than, let's say, you who has God in your life, accepting Him. So I can't go to heaven?
Right.
But if there's a God, I don't think that's true, because I feel like if I'm just if I'm trying to be my best every day and do what's right and like you said, not sin, I feel like he could let me in.
Yeah.
If I knocked on the door, I feel like he'd let me in.
It doesn't make sense that you have to believe in him. I feel like if you're living up to even if you live up to his morals, and you're not like Christian, Catholic, whatever, if you're not of his religion but you still live to his morals, like inadvertently, if you're caring, like respectful, all this stuff to other people, why would he be like, no? Because you like...
Yeah, that's my question.
See, right,
like,
sure.
In a nice way, I'm really curious.
What about people who aren't from regions where like Catholicism is a thing? Like,
well, I'm not talking about Catholicism, because I'm not a Roman Catholic. It's an entirely different religion.
People with Christianity, even religions where Christianity is a thing,
right.
Like those people who were never taught it existed.
Right.
Why would he be like, no, because you're from this region, you didn't know it was a thing.
I feel like that's what makes it almost cultish.
So let me.
I feel like
so let me answer.
It has to be like a moral, like living up to his standards, that inadvertently knowing they're a thing.
Right.
Then you get it.
And if you were God, everything you just said would make sense. But it doesn't matter what you feel, and in the end, it doesn't matter what any of us believe. What matters is whether or not what we believe is true.
So you're saying,
nobody goes to hell because they never heard of Jesus. They go to hell because they've broken God's law.
Which is what he said.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's broken God's law.
No, he's saying that if I live a caring life, I can't go to heaven.
Okay, God's standard, though, is moral perfection. Jesus said you are to be perfect.
And if he was morally perfect,
okay, but he's not.
He wouldn't get
But what if
in
I'm striving every day to be that perfect? I'm trying
You're
my hardest. I'm never going to get there, not even close.
Right, neither will I. Let's make that clear. Neither will I.
But I'm just wondering why, if I'm do my best my entire life and not
because your best is never going to be good enough.
Exactly. Good enough to get into God.
Your best is never going to be good enough.
But nobody's ever. So then nobody would get in.
Right. Yeah. You get it exactly.
Yeah. But
right.
Then,
none of us
think you will, and I can, and you don't think I can. That's what makes me kind of like. Kind of pissed.
So let me. Well, don't be. Let me explain.
Well, I'm not mad. But not you. But I'm saying people.
I'm not going to heaven because of who I am. I'm going to heaven in spite of who I am. I'm going to heaven because of what Jesus Christ did on behalf of a sinner like me. Okay. I'm not going to heaven because I'm a good guy.
Yeah.
Okay, because like you, I can't live up to his standard. Right. Not one day in my life can I live up to his standard of moral perfection. That's why I need a Savior, and God has provided only one. And that's his son, Jesus Christ. It's not me, it's not you, it's not us. It's his son, Jesus Christ. The God who created us has the authority and the right and the ability to determine by which standard he's going to allow anyone to be reconciled to him. Okay. And we don't get a vote.
Yeah, we don't get a vote.
No.
Okay, but then why, if I haven't accepted God or Jesus, why can't I get in? Why is that? It's already a closed door then.
Right, because he has determined that there is only one way for mankind to be reconciled to him, and that is through the gift of his son Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Because Jesus, the God-man, perfect in every respect, made the only sacrifice God the Father would accept. And that was, it had to be perfectly God and it had to be perfectly man, and you and I are neither.
Right. So you have to believe in God to get that.
Well, no, we all believe in God. There are no atheists, there are no agnostics. There are simply people who suppress the truth they know about God by their unrighteousness. They hate God so much, and they want to usurp God's authority and be God of their own little universe, that they'll create this delusion that God doesn't exist. And then they live in this worldview of absurdity where all the standards are arbitrary, and it's up to you and it's up to me until the standard becomes uncomfortable and we don't like it anymore, or we feel it's oppressive, and then we get to impose our standard, our arbitrary standard, on the other guy who has an arbitrary standard. And then we just live in this world of absurdity as we try to exclude the God we know from our consciousness, the conscience that God gave us. All right? So God sets the standard. God provides the way of escape, God is the one who judges, and he has done all of that through the gift of his Son, Jesus Christ.
I just believe to my core that if I strive to be the best I can, and I care and I love, that when I die, if I knock on the door, he's going to let me in whether I've accepted him or not.
Right.
And
Again,
it doesn't matter. Like, I don't care what you think.
I know. I understand that.
But that's what
and in the end, I'm not going to convince you because salvation's of the Lord.
Yeah. So
right. It's going to take a work of the Holy Spirit to take your heart of stone that's at enmity with God and give you a heart of flesh. What's that?
Once I die, it's too late.
Because because God has said in his word, it's appointed once for a person to die, and then the judgment. Okay. There are no do-overs.
That's going to be a big decision.